Late 1960s. 9:17 p.m. Frank Lucas didn't come to Harlem to socialize. He came the way men come when they've got something heavy to deliver. Quiet, direct, and with their eyes already scanning exits. Small's paradise was alive that night. Jazz rolling through the room. Cigarette smoke hanging in the lights. Laughter at the bar that sounded real until you listened closer and heard the business underneath it. Bumpy Johnson sat in his usual corner booth, a calm center in a room built on motion. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He was just watching, the way a man watches when he already knows half the room is lying about why they're here. Frank Lucas slid into the booth without asking. Bumpy didn't react like a man surprised. He reacted like a man who'd been expecting something, just not sure from which direction. "Frank," Bumpy said, voice steady. "You're a long way from your usual corners." Frank's face stayed neutral. "I need 30 seconds of truth. No crowd. No ears." Bumpy nodded once and gestured lightly. The men near the booth shifted away, creating distance without making a scene. In Harlem, even silence had rules. Frank leaned forward. "I heard something you need to hear," he said. Bumpy's eyes narrowed. "Then say it." Frank hesitated for half a beat, like he didn't enjoy the next words. "Somebody's been talking to your wife." The music didn't stop, but for Bumpy, everything else did. He didn't change expression, didn't slam the table, didn't raise his voice. He just stared at Frank like he was measuring whether the man across from him was delivering help or lighting a fuse. "Who?" Bumpy asked quietly. Frank's voice dropped lower. "Not a friend. Not family. A Fed channel. Dirty badge type. Real smooth. Been using church money and charity paperwork as cover." Bumpy's fingers tapped once against the table, slow, controlled. "What are they saying?" Bumpy asked. Frank shook his head. "Not saying. Pressuring. Leaning. Offering. Threatening. The kind of talk that starts as just a conversation and ends with a man losing everything." Bumpy held Frank's eyes. "You sure it's my wife?" he asked. Frank didn't blink. "I'm sure." Bumpy leaned back slightly. "Why are you telling me?" Frank exhaled through his nose. "Because I've seen what happens when men try to use families as leverage," he said. "And I've seen what happens when they pick the wrong man to do it too." Bumpy sat still for a long moment. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "Did she talk back?" Frank's face tightened. "I don't know. I only know they've been around her. Close." Bumpy nodded, as if filing it away like an address. "All right," he said. "You did your part." Frank started to rise. Bumpy stopped him with a quiet sentence. 24 hours, Bumpy said. "If what you said is real, then by this time tomorrow, I'll have the truth." Frank paused. "And if it is real?" Bumpy's voice stayed calm. "Then somebody thought they could buy access to my home," he said. "And they'll learn what that costs." Frank didn't ask what cost meant in Bumpy Johnson's world. He'd lived long enough to understand the language. He simply nodded once and walked out. Bumpy remained in the booth, staring at his untouched drink like it had turned into a problem he couldn't shoot. Because street problems had street solutions. But the moment someone reached into his house, into his marriage, this wasn't just business. This was war disguised as a whisper. And the most dangerous whispers are the ones you don't hear until they're inside your walls. Bumpy didn't go home angry. He went home quiet. That's what made him terrifying to the people who knew him best. Bumpy's rage wasn't loud. It was organized. Mamie was in the living room when he walked in. Not waiting like she was guilty. Not pacing like she was scared. Just sitting with a cup of tea, hair wrapped, slippers on, domestic calm in a world that rarely allowed it. "You're late," she said gently. "Had business," Bumpy replied. Mamie studied his face. "Bad business?" Bumpy sat across from her, close enough to see the smallest details. The tension around her eyes, the way her fingers held the cup too tightly, like she was making sure her hands didn't shake. "I heard something," Bumpy said. Mamie didn't ask what. She didn't have to. In their life, something usually had teeth. "I'm listening," she said. Bumpy kept his voice steady. "I heard a man has been around you," he said. asking questions, making offers. Mamie's cup paused halfway to her lips. "Who told you that?" she asked. Bumpy watched her carefully. Not like a cop. Like a husband trying to decide whether the woman he loved was in danger, or part of it. "Does it matter?" he asked. Mamie looked away for a second. Just a second, but it was enough. "That means it's true," Bumpy said. She sighed. "It's true." Bumpy nodded slowly. "Who?" Mamie hesitated, then finally said it. "Detective Keenan," she whispered. "Not Murphy. Another one. He came through a charity board. Said he wanted to support Harlem." Bumpy's jaw tightened. He knew the type. They didn't kick doors. They shook hands. "What did he want?" Bumpy asked. Mamie stared into her tea like the answers might sink to the bottom. "He wanted access," she said. "To you. To your routine. To talk, without it looking like a police conversation." Bumpy's eyes hardened. "And what did you give him?" Mamie's voice stayed controlled, but there was pain in it. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Not what you think." Bumpy didn't speak. Mamie continued, carefully choosing words. "He came with a story," she said. "Said he could protect our people from raids. Said he could keep certain officers off certain corners. Said he could make trouble disappear, if we cooperated." Bumpy's laugh was quiet and humorless. "Cooperate," he repeated. "That word has put more men in cages than bullets ever did." Mamie nodded. "I know." "Then why did you let him near you?" Bumpy asked. Her eyes flashed, not with defiance, but with frustration. "Because he didn't come to me like a thug," she said. "He came like a gentleman. Like a donor. Like a man who knew how to make his pressure sound like help." Bumpy leaned in slightly. "And?" Mamie swallowed. "And he threatened a girl from my church," she admitted. "A young mother. Her husband got picked up on a petty charge. Keenan made it clear he could make it turn into something bigger if she didn't, if I didn't listen." Bumpy's expression shifted, just barely. Because that sounded like Mamie, taking weight onto her own shoulders so nobody else had to carry it. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Mamie's eyes watered, but she didn't let a tear fall. "Because I didn't want you to solve it the way you solve things," she whispered. Bumpy sat back slowly. "So you tried to solve it yourself?" he said. Mamie nodded once. "Yes." Bumpy looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something Mamie didn't expect. "I'm not angry you tried," he said. "I'm angry you were forced to." Mamie's breath caught. Bumpy's voice dropped lower. "But I need the truth," he said. "All of it. Every meeting. Every word. Did you give him anything, names, schedules, locations?" Mamie shook her head. "No." Bumpy's eyes stayed locked on hers. "Did you promise anything?" Her lips parted, then closed again. That hesitation was the crack where the truth lived. Bumpy nodded slowly. "By this time tomorrow," he said, "you're going to confess everything you didn't just say." Mamie stiffened. "Ellsworth." Bumpy stood. "I'm not accusing you," he said. "I'm protecting us." He walked toward the phone. "And I'm going to find out whether this Keenan is just leaning," he added, "or whether he's already inside our house." Mamie watched him dial numbers she didn't recognize. For the first time that night, she realized something frightening. Bumpy Johnson wasn't preparing to punish her. He was preparing to expose a trap. And if the trap was real, then the next 24 hours would decide whether their home stayed a home or became evidence. Bumpy didn't confront Keenan with fists. He confronted him with structure. By midnight, Bumpy had done what he always did, turned Harlem into a listening device. He spoke to a church treasurer who handled donations and knew which checks looked too interested. He spoke to a clerk at the courthouse who owed him a favor and could see which cases Keenan was touching that shouldn't have had his fingerprints on them. He spoke to a bartender who served cops after shift and heard the things they said when they thought nobody respectable was listening. Every conversation gave Bumpy a piece. And by sunrise, Bumpy had a pattern. Keenan didn't want Mamie for romance. He wanted her as a door. A clean door. The kind a Fed task force could walk through without looking like they kicked it down. At 8:11 a.m., Bumpy sat at his kitchen table with Feldman, The attorney who never asked questions about the money as long as the paperwork stayed tight. Feldman looked up from his notes. If Keenan is approaching through charity boards, Feldman said, he's trying to create a narrative. Mrs. Johnson cooperated willingly. That gives them cover. Bumpy nodded. So we remove his cover. Feldman hesitated. How? Bumpy's voice stayed calm. We make him show his hand, he said. In public but quiet. Mamie entered the room, dressed for the day, face composed like it had been ironed. Bumpy looked at her. You going to meet him again? He asked. Mamie held his gaze. If you want me to. Bumpy nodded once. I do. Feldman stiffened. That's risky. Bumpy didn't look away. Everything is risky once they're near your wife, he said. He turned to Mamie. This time, he said, you don't dodge. You don't soften. You don't protect him from your fear. Mamie's eyes narrowed. What do I do? Bumpy's answer was simple. You tell him you're considering his offer, Bumpy said. You tell him you want guarantees. And you get him to say what he really wants, out loud. Mamie swallowed. He'll push. I know, Bumpy replied. That's the point. Feldman leaned forward. We need a witness. Bumpy nodded. We'll have one. By 1:30 p.m., Mamie sat in a small Harlem nonprofit office, clean, bright, polite furniture, the kind of place the city could pretend was proof everything was improving. Keenan arrived 5 minutes late, smiling like the world owed him forgiveness. Mrs. Johnson, he said warmly. Thank you for meeting again. Mamie didn't smile. You said you wanted to help. Keenan leaned back in his chair. I do, he said. But help is a two-way street. Mamie's voice stayed even. What exactly do you want? She asked. Keenan lowered his voice, confident. I want a name, he said. One name that matters. One drop location. One schedule. Something that proves you're serious. Mamie stared at him, letting the ugliness of it sit in the room. That's not help, she said. That's betrayal. Keenan shrugged like it was business. Call it what you want, he said. The feds are coming either way. I'm offering you a softer landing. Mamie's hands clenched in her lap. And if I don't? She asked. Keenan's smile thinned. Then that young mother you're protecting loses her husband for a long time, he said. And the papers will say your family inspired a raid that cleaned up Harlem. You'll be a villain and a victim at the same time. Mamie's throat tightened. But she didn't break. Instead, she did what Bumpy told her. She made him keep talking. Who are you working with? She asked. Keenan smirked. People above you. Mamie leaned in slightly. And if I give you something, she said, voice low, you guarantee my family is safe? Keenan nodded once. Yes, he said. I can guarantee that. A voice from the next room spoke calmly. That's a lie. Keenan froze. The door behind him opened. Bumpy stepped in. Not charging. Not shouting. Just walking into the room like he belonged there. Because in Harlem, he did. Keenan's face went pale. Mamie exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a day and a half. Bumpy looked at Keenan. You've been using charity to threaten women, Bumpy said. That's low. Keenan tried to stand. This is obstruction. Bumpy's voice stayed calm. No, he said. This is exposure. He nodded toward the corner. A small tape recorder sat on a shelf, red light on. Keenan's eyes widened. You recorded me? He hissed. Mamie's voice was ice. You tried to buy me into betraying my own home, she said. I did what you taught me, detective. I listened. Keenan lunged toward the recorder. Junie stepped from the hallway and blocked him, casual and immovable. Sit down, Junie said. Keenan's hands shook. His confidence collapsed into rage. You can't do this, he spat. You think this is over? Bumpy leaned in close enough that Keenan could smell him. It's over for you, Bumpy said quietly. Because you forgot something. Keenan glared. What? Bumpy's voice dropped. You thought my wife was a shortcut, he said. But she's the lock. Section 4. The confession that saved the house. That evening, 24 hours after Frank Lucas's warning, Mamie sat across from Bumpy in their living room. No guests. No music. No club noise. Just the quiet of a marriage that had survived things most people couldn't imagine. Bumpy poured 2 glasses of water and set one in front of her. "You did good today," he said. Mamie shook her head. "I did what I had to." Bumpy watched her. "Now give me the rest." Mamie's shoulders tightened. "Ellsworth," she began, "I didn't tell you everything last night because I was scared of what you'd do." Bumpy nodded once. "I know." Mamie swallowed. "The first time Keenan approached me," she admitted, "I didn't shut it down fast enough. I thought I could manage it. I thought I could protect that girl from church and keep him away from you." Bumpy's eyes stayed calm. "And?" Mamie's voice trembled. "And I gave him a small lie," she confessed. "A fake location. A fake name. Something to keep him satisfied while I figured out how to get him away." Bumpy was quiet. Mamie rushed on. "It wasn't real," she said. "I swear it wasn't. I never gave him anything true. I still spoke to him like he had a right to ask." Bumpy exhaled slowly. "That's the confession," he said. Mamie nodded, tears finally slipping free. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting you." Bumpy leaned forward and took her hand. "You were," he said. "You just did it alone." Mamie wiped her face. "What happens now?" Bumpy's expression hardened, not at her, but at the world that had tried to step into their home. "Now," he said, "Keenan loses his leverage." He stood and walked to the phone. "Feldman will deliver the tape to the right people," he said. "Not the newspapers. Not yet. The right people." Mamie frowned. "Who's the right people?" Bumpy's voice was steady. "The kind of people who don't want a detective running a private extortion business under a federal umbrella," he said. "The kind of people who will remove him quietly because he's an embarrassment." Mamie stared. "So he just disappears?" Bumpy shook his head. "No," he said. "He gets transferred. He gets buried in paperwork. He loses access to Harlem." He paused. "And that young mother's husband? He comes home. Or the tape goes someplace even uglier." Mamie nodded slowly. Bumpy turned back to her. "Frank Lucas did one thing right," Bumpy said. "He warned me before the rot spread." Mamie's eyes lifted. "Why would Frank do that?" Bumpy shrugged. "Sometimes men who live in the dark still have lines." He sat back down. "Listen to me," Bumpy said. "If anyone ever leans on you again, badge, politician, preacher, any of them, you tell me first. Not because you're weak." He held her gaze. "Because you're my wife," he said. "And this house is not a place for secrets that can be weaponized." Mamie nodded, voice small. "I understand." Bumpy's voice softened at the end. "And Mamie," he said, "you are not leverage." She breathed out, like she'd been waiting 2 days to hear those words. Outside, Harlem kept moving, cars passing, radios playing, neighbors talking. But inside that living room, something had shifted. Not fear. Clarity. Because the most dangerous attacks aren't always the ones that come through the front door. Sometimes they come wrapped in a handshake, a donation form, and a promise that sounds like help. And sometimes the only reason you survive them is because one person tells you the truth before it's too late. If this story of loyalty, pressure, and the quiet kind of betrayal that doesn't end in gunfire kept you watching, hit like and subscribe for more Harlem legends told with power and precision. And comment below, if you were Bumpy, would you have trusted the confession, or would you have handled it differently?